Do you know how powerful you are?
Welcome to Rise Urban Nation.
Welcome everybody to Rise Urban Nation.
Reshaping and elevating your mindset to help you achieve what you believe.
Sometimes we don't even see our own greatness. You can't be what you can't see.
And connecting Black cultures to build a community of talent and success.
Black people need to realize that they are assets. You are an asset.
When we rise, you rise.
Come together as a group.
This is Rise Urban Nation with Terrell Simmons.
Welcome to another episode of RISEpreneurs. I'm your host with the most, Terrell Simmons. You know, I want to do a quick pause here and give a big shout out to you. Yeah, you, the listeners. Over 2,000 downloads over in iTunes, 10K on the Instagram. And we're in some conversations right now. Got some conversations going on and trying to get services, products, some giveaways for you, the fans. Need one favor from you. When you get a chance, if you scroll down and go into the notes section, or if you go into the Instagram page, there's a little feedback survey so that we can get familiar with our fans, what your needs, what your wants, who are you, so we can start having those conversations and we can start getting the product, services, and different things that could benefit our listeners. Big shout out to my top countries: the US, South Africa, United Kingdom, the UK, Bangladesh, Argentina, India, Nigeria, Spain, France, and Italy. Thank you for all the listeners out there. Greatly appreciate you. It was really shocked to see how worldwide this podcast is taking off. Humbled, honored, and all that good stuff. And thank you. Our episode today, we haven't done this episode in a while. I consult with Sola, my second co-host with the most. We're gonna try to get more of these at least once a month, and tell me what are some of the things you would like from our in-house business coach and my co-host, and we can talk about those things. We can use some tips, strategies. This one, we talked about her millionaire journey, so this will be a great episode for you, for those of you looking to how do I scale, how do I get to that next level. Maybe you might be at that 200,000 mark or that 500,000 mark. How do you scale? As she started to scale and her different businesses and expand her portfolio, she's on her journey and she's sharing a little bit of her journey with us and some of those resources. So without further ado, let's hop into the episode. All right, welcome to another episode of RISEpreneurs. We got Sola in the building again. Welcome back. So what should we talk to? Well, first of all, we want to let you know that we just hit 75 on the Apple podcast. Yeah. So thank you very much for bringing RISEpreneurs. Oh, and I should clarify, in Africa, we are number 75 on the podcast, the Billboard charts. And I'm excited. You excited?
Yes, I'm very excited. I'm very happy. That makes me so happy.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is, when we get to number 5, we're going to do a special celebration and giveaway. So yeah, help us get to number 5, and we're going to try to bless all of you with a contest, have some winners out there. All right. So in this episode, we're going to talk about hashtag HTMAM. And if you want to know what that is, tell the people what that hashtag HTMAM. It's like a tongue twister for me. What is it, and how did you come up with this brainchild?
Oh wow. Okay, so #HTMAM means how to make a million, and basically it's me sharing that I'm going on this millionaire journey. I gave myself a goal to become a millionaire in 5 years, because it was about time. I was getting close to 40. I was just looking at how my life had gone, where I was at. And I said, you know what, from this moment on, I have to be intentional about where I'm going to be. And I made that decision to go on that journey because I said, okay, what would take the worry of money off the table for me? And I realized that the worry of money is a massive distraction from life. Mm-hmm. There's so many things we want to do. Family, help people solve the world's problem, but you need cash to do these things, and I mean, even the church, when they want to do it, guess what? They use money that their congregation gives them. So if you want to go down that line as well, that's the way to look at it. And you have to get to a point where the worry of making money is really off the table for you to really focus on the things that matter. And that's what I wanted, because you can't do one before the other. You have to really make sure that one place is taken care of before you can do the other thing. So that's why I went that journey, and I had to become intentional and understand money. I had a bad relationship with money in the past. So I had to get real and then accept my own situation and then fix it and then educate myself. That was very important. And that's why I went on this journey.
Awesome. And why these specific letters, HTMA? And well, I mean, I know why. And not to be confused with another hashtag. There's a funny story to this. So I'll let Sola tell it. Like, there's another hashtag HTMAM out there. Well, what is that other one?
Well, it's how to marry a millionaire. And to be honest, for some, that could be the way they become millionaires. But, I was very frustrated because I was trying to launch the hashtag on Instagram. He had me thinking, woo, no one is going to have this hashtag, la, 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 because it was so odd, And then I type it in and then I see how to marry a millionaire. And I'm thinking, come on, man, that now I'm going to have to figure out an alternate to match what I'm doing. So then I just put the HTMAM Journey to, help me out. But I was like, this is a big part of my brand. But again, it's like, I like the fact that if people go and check it out, they'll either find my stuff or they'll find, how to marry a millionaire, which would be a comic kind of thing. Very humorous, sorry.
So now I want to dive back into the relationship of money. And I think that's a very important one. And then after that, we'll dive into like a little bit of mindset, because I feel, a lot of people who are not living their abundant life, some of it is part of the relationship you have with money. What would you say was the biggest thing that you had to overcome in your relationship with money to get on this new path? And how did you start to change your relationship with money?
Oh, wow. So I had this, and a lot of it has to do with your mindset, right? And there were lots of layers. So I'm going to try and see if I can, just like an onion, just give you a couple of things. But the key one specifically was fear of being rich. I was scared that I would lose myself or I would lose control, just things that just didn't make any sense. And it stopped me from actually ever breaching a particular barrier, a particular point, and that I had to handle. Then number two, it was spiritual. It's like sometimes, I don't know the environment you grew up in, but, if you ever spend time around people who are very religious, money is like seen as the root of evil or something like that, right? And I feel like it depends on the person. It got to a point where I had to say, I don't think that's true. I'm not an evil person. Yes, I made some really poor choices, but I'm not innately an evil person. In fact, most of the choices I've made have been because I'm trying to help somebody else. And I had to figure out a way where I understood that money is about, being able to sustain yourself, right? You're by yourself, self-sustainable, right? And that was very important for me to understand that, hey, you need to get to that point where you are confident and capable of financially sustaining yourself. And when I say financially sustaining yourself, it's not about having enough money to eat a meal in a day. It's having enough money to eat a meal, to put a roof on your head, to do the things that, will make life better for you and others as well. And, it's not about philanthropy in a sense. I mean, most people don't become philanthropists until they've made an obscene amount of money, where they know that every space is covered. But think about it. How many times a day do you worry about money? That occupying your mind. And it's like having an abusive partner of some kind where at least 70% of your brain energy is being used on one thing. That leaves 30% for everything else, for family, for yourself. I mean, it's not something that should be something we worry about, but that's the world we live in. So what we need to do, we're on Earth. Earth likes cash. We got to figure out how to make sure that you have, I don't want to say an endless supply of it, but at least that every base is covered cash wise.
Yeah, I resonate with all that. I grew up in partially a Nigerian home and partially a religious home. My mom was very religious, and the mindset, and when you look at people who are in the church on money, usually like money is the devil, it's the root of all evil. And so too much money results into you being, a overindulgent and selfless person, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that, but that's how it's kind of interpreted, from, some spiritual teachings, or just in general, how we generalize it, right? Instead of looking at it in abundance. For my Nigerian side, there's that hustle mentality to get money and save it, from how my dad had ingrained in us, make sure you save your money, make sure you work hard and get these things, right? And then there's this scarcity mindset that comes from that too. So like now I was like, I got to hold on to every single penny because the money is scarce, when money's technically supposed to be in circulation. So you're supposed to use money to make more money and things around you instead of hoarding and save it. That's not the path to wealth. And so I had to unlearn some of those things when I was growing up. Was there some similar things in that too, growing up in your culture?
Oh yeah. I mean, the same culture, we would be Nigerian. But one thing that my mom was very big on was to ensure we had a good education, so we could, because for them in their time, having a good education guaranteed you were going to get a job, a good job that would, generate the kind of lifestyle you wanted. Now, the thing that's weird is that the lifestyle we're able to have when, we were living in Nigeria it was very different. I mean, this is upper class. We're able to have holidays once a year. We traveled with business class. We went to private schools. It's not something that living abroad, we've been able to get the same thing or have the same thing. I mean, you have to work harder here, on this side of the world to have those things. In fact, you have to have that number. You have to be on that point where you are heading towards $1 million in terms of what your assets are worth, that they will pay you to be able to live that kind of lifestyle sustainably. Yeah, that's the key thing. Because you can make money, but if you don't manage yourself properly, it will run out. And you end up living from paycheck to paycheck, from month to month, right? And that's not, to me, I don't think that's how life should be in any way. And a lot of people feel like it's out of their hands. And I said, no, I don't think that this is out of my hands. This is something I can do something about. I know my value. I know what I bring to the table. I've been blessed to have the opportunity to be educated, in some of the top, on some of the highest standards. I'm an economist. I shouldn't be struggling at any point in my life in my 30s, right? And I have a daughter, I have a 10-year-old, and that's not what I want to teach her. Yeah. So, the mindset was key. In fact, in my journey, the first thing I did was work on my mindset. I had to change how I understood money or felt about money. Then it was about, okay, where do I want to be? You don't figure out where you want to be unless you learn from people who are already there. And that was something that was important including in this journey. So some people assume that when I started my journey, I went straight into figuring out how to make money. I said, no, that's not how it works. I had to unlearn, as I love that you use that term, because that's exactly what happened. I had to unlearn a lot of things I had picked up growing up or just in the midst of people. And then I had to create a new space, create a new tribe of people, attract a new tribe of people that felt or were going along the same way as I was. And that's what happens. Once you change directions, once you pivot in your life, you're going to attract the people who match that place. You have to be strong enough to realize that your previous you have to clean house in terms of who your friends you hang out with, your business partners, all those things has to change. And, the hardest thing for me was in this journey was getting my family to come along and take it seriously as well. It's everybody wants to make $1 million, but do you know what it takes? Do you know how much work we have to do to get there? And it was not easy. It included facing some hard truths, especially with my mom, because my mom was she's such a hard worker, right? Her goal was to make sure we had the best. But it also meant that she didn't have to provide for us. So one thing I said that we need to re-educate ourselves about money. It's, the way we were raised and taught about it is not essentially how it was. And again, remember, she's a woman. She's a single mom. In most societies, women are kind of ostracized from managing their own money. So, she only understood money based on the lens of how her dad was in terms of making it and how her mother managed it, right? To make sure they had the best, right? So there's some gaps that were there that I wanted to fill for not just myself, but my daughter as well. And as many people in my family as possible.
Yeah. And I think that's the same thing that happened in my journey too, because, our parents laid a really good foundation for us, education wise and everything that we could ask for. But to grow to the next phase, they wouldn't be able to give us what we needed to go to the next phase. So like when here I am, I'm doing well for myself right now. And then my dad knows I'm starting this podcast and starting some other things in my entrepreneurship journey. And he cannot understand it for the life of him. He's like, why are you doing this thing? Why don't you just you have a good job now, and you can be in government, you can be senator one day. Why don't you just leave this thing alone? I don't understand. And I'm telling them like, that there's no freedom in that, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, are you saying that the education that I have provide for you is no good? Is that what you? And I'm like, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it's no good. I'm saying it was good. And in that education, I've learned some other things, that this is not the path for freedom.
Oh yes, there's limitation. There's limitation with education on two fronts, actually, brother. Number one, you're limited by what you learned in education. But life is about life education, life school. There's a very big difference, because you know something, when I graduated from university, the first thing I did was, hey, mom, here's my certificate. Meanwhile, I graduated from economics at UCL, one of the top universities in England. And what did I go and do? I went to go and work in a fashion house, because that's what I wanted to do. And I started from the ground up. And within 6 months, I opened my first business. My second business. Do you understand? So it was a situation where the education I needed wasn't what I got. Economics helps, yes. And that's why I think about things on a macro level. But I needed entrepreneurship education, which did not exist when I finished university. And that's the point where with African parents, it's very hard to get through. Some people are really lucky, especially the ones that grow up abroad or spend majority of their life abroad. They're able to actually go and study things like film or media or journalism, things that, it's like they would never accept back home, because they're only 4 careers as far as they're concerned. But the thing was that was limit number one. Limit number two, it will never lead you to a certain level of financial freedom unless you become a C-suite person where you're earning, your bonuses are in millions and you're earning 7 figures a year. And how many of us can do that? How many of us can get there, especially us, Black and Africans? It's not going to happen. And, I have to say, right now, my mom is in her 60s and she's thinking, I worked since I was in my 20s. And I can't believe I'm still here. So for her, because of that, and this is such a great turning point, and I'm so glad that she's who she is to see it, because we did have some back and forth a lot. We it was like, Sola, come on, go get a 9-to-5 job, and things like that. But when she sees that when I hit a very good client, right, I get paid for a year from one job. Yeah. So she's like, but her thing was, I wish it was every month that happened. But, being an entrepreneur, you're used to that kind of thing. Today, tomorrow kind of thing. And she saw that, oh my gosh, you actually do a lot more work. Then she saw that she knows that she believes in karma and all these things, that whatever you do the creation will match up to it, right? Eventually. And then that is where, she can see that happening. She sees it when I meet someone new. Like when you and I started, building our relationship together, she could see that, oh, wow, Shola is finally meeting the kind of people she needs to be in to ensure this happens. Because that was a prayer she had for me, but I never understood it, because that's the key thing. You are who you hang out with. You are who you choose to be around, and at the capacity that they choose to see you. Mm-hmm. And you need to make sure that if you realize you've outgrown a room, you need to move to the next room. And that was something that was important for me. One thing I learned from my mom was how to be diligent, because my mom is the best worker anyone can ever have. But I saw what it did to her. I saw what it did to my father working in government. And in my mind, I was thinking, that can't happen to me. But I never voiced it out. It just anchored somewhere in my subconscious mind. So I never made a decision that led me to where they were. Yeah. It was like this that's like my ultimate fear. I mean, actually, it's in my book,
Nice.
my self-awareness exercise, joining the rat race. Oh my gosh. Like if I ever got to a point where I was like, okay, I need to get a job, I know the feelings and emotions that pass through me, that flow through me, that feel like it's not right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and that's like something that everyone eventually gets to at some point. So those are the two limitations really with education. You're only going to get to a certain point. Okay, fine. I reached the highest point in my career at 28. I became a CMO at 28 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the highest amount of money you're going to earn in that space is based on where I was at the time in the world was about $200,000 a year. Some people are very happy with that. Mm-hmm. But then again, I was making that. I had no real goals. I wasn't a mother then. Number two, I didn't understand money. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a system to plug my money into for it to become an asset and work for me. That's another thing that we kind of lack somehow in Africa, youths understanding that, okay, you got to have a 401k, especially since I was self-employed, I didn't have all these things, I didn't have that knowledge because I am coming from parents who work for people who those things are already set up within their pay structure. As an entrepreneur, I have to create those things myself. So can you imagine all the time being an entrepreneur up until like my mid 30s? I didn't have much of a financial structure. What I actually did, the only thing I did that was financially smart was when I had my daughter, I knew what I wanted for her at certain stages in her life. Once she turns 16, when she can get, is it 16 or 18 when you can get credit? Make sure that she builds that properly because I didn't. I messed up mine. I blew mine out, up when I was 18. Then the next step, 21, to buy a home, her first home. Because I've had issues living from place to place. And I thought, you know what? I don't want my daughter having this problem. I need to cover that. Yeah. This is not about even covering what she's going to eat today. This was about covering the major things that affected my mental illness, my mental state of mind. So I wanted to make sure they were covered. Then the last thing, the third thing was education. I wanted to make sure that for her first degree and her master's, that was covered. Yeah. And a lot of people don't know that, you can set things like that up where you just pay a little bit of money or set one amount of money in a trust. And then, because I don't know if I'm going to be here, that's taken care of. Right. And that was the best thing I did financially ever. That was the first thing I literally did ever because it wasn't about me anymore. I couldn't keep tossing myself back and forth financially. I had someone to take care of. I had a mouth to feed. So I had to change. But I wish there was a space I could have gone into immediately and just said, okay, how am I going to do this? Yeah. Right. But it took a while. So at 35, it was my 35th birthday. I said, you know what? This has got to change. This has to stop. I can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. That's,
that's madness.
That's madness. That's insanity. Yeah. So it's time to change. How do I do this? And it started with that mindset. And it was funny. Let me tell you what happened. That was crazy. Once I made that decision, the first thing that happened was a client of mine invited me to a financial literacy program that she had in her church. And it was funny because I have been to like 2 different churches already at this point, just for, spiritual support. And they charge for it. And something told me, like, I'm the kind of person that I listen to my intuition and my spirit guide. And it was like, what you're going to do, where are you going to do this? You're not even going to spend $1. And I was like, oh my Lord. When you hear some of your, visions and your audio visions, and you're like, okay, get real. How's that going to happen? But man, you know what? Almighty showed up and showed me how it was going to happen. This course was with the Latter-day Saints and it was free. Mm. And what I loved about the course more than anything, it connected money and soul. It connected money and and God, that is something I needed to see because I felt like I was doing something wrong. I felt like I was sinning going on this journey. Mm. And the way the course was structured, in fact, I remember the particular diagram that they had at the beginning of the course that explains, it's like a house and it gives you multiple levels on money, right? And I was blown away because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I needed. In fact, after that, I was like, okay, I don't need any more, but of course, because I made a promise to finish it. I finished the course, right? And I got a certificate for it, but I have the book here. So anytime I'm losing or feeling any kind of way, I pick it up again and look at that diagram and I remember, okay, this is why I'm doing this. And then it was funny because it was like I had closed listening to any kind of spiritual guidance on money because I had thought like that for 35 years.
Wow.
So the minute that happened, oh my gosh, I started receiving even more on what to do, on how this journey was going to go. It's like, at first you need to work on your mind, So I worked on it, part of it with my life coach at the time. Then the next thing was you need to get educated and be around people who have done it. Because mentor system. And that's literally what, how the structure of the years have been. In fact, what I was supposed to achieve in one of the years, I did it so quickly. I literally did it in less than 6 months. And what I did, I said, okay, I need to share what I'm doing with the world. I said, okay. And that was a decision that came right at the moment I started the journey. It was funny because that moment I made that decision, somehow Anchor popped up in one of my ads randomly. Mm-hmm. Oh, I can record a podcast. That same day I saw that ad was the same day I launched my first episode. So literally, if you've been listening to the podcast from day one, you have been on the same timeline as I've been, which means if you had started the same time as I did intentionally about what I'm doing, by year 5, you'll be in the same spot I'm in.
Yeah, that's
so
beautiful. And then hopefully you transition with her over to RISEpreneurs so we can help you rise in your business and career.
Yes.
I resonate with everything you just said. And I think this is why me and you match so well, because I've accidentally maneuvered in my career intentionally and unintentionally, through the ranks of these different systems and been able to be in the rooms with the decision makers in these systems. And from that, been able to engage in mentorship, which was sometimes the mentorship was I was learning from them and they didn't know I was learning from them. And then there was some intentional mentorship. My mindset shifted, I think 6 years ago when I met my financial advisor, who happens to be a Black man. And he was like the second one I got to, but he took the time to educate me. Right. And I knew I wanted my family to be straight if anything ever happened to me as a man. And he's like, all right, well, we need to set up this life insurance. We'll have this program with the annuity. We'll set you up in this Roth with what you're doing over here. And then as I started to grow financially and more knowledge, and make more money and make decisions, and investments, he's like, all right, you got this. All right, now that you made this, you already have a tax shelter over here. So move this over here and let's set this up this way. And then I started to learn, how the rich do it, right? You could at the age of 5 years old, you could put your kid on some credit cards to have them start building credit. So about the time they get to 18, they have a 800 credit score already and have built up, and they could just take out massive amounts of loan to build whatever they need to build. You could get a life insurance policy for your young one as soon as they're born, and then that can also act as a financial shelter for them where they can pull that money out, from the annuity into buying their first house or take a loan on it if they run on hard times, which will have a lower, almost no high predatory percentage rates they have to pay back if they take it out. It's like paying back themselves, right? And he taught me all these things. I was like, wow, you could do this? And then I was able to grow in my career and my mindset because of all these different educational lessons I was getting from how the rich do it by being around people who were financially rich. And they were trying to tap into my mindset from, how I built these different programs and maneuvered these different systems to get, programs to different communities. So it was a blessing in disguise. So let's go back to your journey. I want to go through it. We focused on that mindset, and on your website, when we go through the HTMAM journey, it says the phase 1 was the cocoon. Tell me about the cocoon phase. What is that all about? Was that the life coach and so forth that you spoke about?
Yes. Yeah. So I had to go within myself to figure out what was wrong. And, facing yourself is the hardest thing in any area of your life. So what I always tell people is that don't ever look at yourself as one, think of yourself as a painting. Every painting has multiple layers, right? Mm-hmm. And every time you decide to fix something within you, You're just unpeeling a layer, unraveling a layer. You're like, oh, that's why, let's say you look at the Monet painting. That's why he put, the woman over here. That's why the umbrella looks like that. That's why the water looks like that. That's why he chose how to, to paint in this way, or this is the type of brush he used. So, or the kind of color layers he did here to get to this point to have this effect. So you have to see yourself that way. So for me, I knew there was something wrong. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, when something is wrong, I have to find a solution, right? But when it comes to a life thing, you need to go and sit down with yourself. And literally, that's why I described it as a cocoon phase. I'm going in to unravel. I'm going in to unravel what the problem is here. And once you identify a problem, that's already the start of finding a solution, right? Mm-hmm. So that was what I did that year. That year was literally study. Okay. I was just studying, reading books, like, everything I could dig up on this millionaire journey, I did. Found this book that was by E. Ecker, and that book was so interesting. It was about I have a money mindset. So it was a millionaire mindset book. That was one. Mm-hmm. Then The Millionaire Next Door. That was another. Anything I could find free in the library. Again, I didn't spend a dime. I did it. I downloaded the library app on my phone, and I could just rented out the books and I read them, or audiobooks. Audiobooks from people who are mad and then wanted to know their story. People like Richard Branson. I had read his book years ago, which was Screw It, Let's Just Do It, or something like that. So anything I could find that would keep my mind in a certain place that I could do it positively, that would remove any doubt. I did that. Then. And every time I'm feeling some kind of way or shaky, I go and look for one of those things, and then I read them, or a podcast that I was listening to, because there are loads. I listen to a podcast, and sometimes, funny enough, I listen to my podcast. Mm-hmm. Because I'm like, okay, you started this 4 years ago, so you have to make sure that, that you're on track. Right. So, and that's something about being self-aware, and that's what that cocoon phase is. When you become self-aware, you are in this you've created this beautiful cocoon for yourself that's light and airy. And it's about accepting where you are and accepting what you did to get to that point, or what you didn't do, or what you did not know. And in my case, it was knowledge. Knowledge was the issue. And I didn't blame anyone, right, about this, because also people automatically blame, which is their parents, they don't know either. Mm-hmm. You could be that key to generational wealth for your family. You're the one. If you had that feeling and that moment, you're the one that's meant to do that and go and re-educate everyone. It's not going to be easy. I can tell you that, because that part of my journey it was the hardest. But when they do get it, it's like it's a breeze. And that's how I feel right now. Now we, even with COVID has given us the opportunity to sit down and talk about our financial goals together, mm-hmm. right? As a family. And talking to my sister, talking to my brothers, my mom. I mean, this is the first time in years that we have a collective path that we're walking on together, hand in hand, that we check in with each other. Or if I find something that I know will be of interest, I'll send it to in the family group, or vice versa, everyone else, And my mom is actively on that too. Once she sees anything that's of a good story that would motivate us, she shares it with all of us. That's part of all of it. And going in the cocoon phase is a protective phase for yourself, because you need to make sure that you're not around anyone that's going to change your mind on this journey. Yeah. Because someone will there could be somebody in your life like, oh, you want to be a millionaire? Ha, ha, ha. That's not going to happen. You need to cut people like that off. Mm-hmm. You actually, even the people you hang around with, you need to clean house. And this is not easy for some, because people feel like their social life is very important. But I'm like, look, man, if we are not growing together in a particular direction, then we're stifling each other. Yeah. And a lot of people don't understand that no matter what, anyone who doesn't want to go on a journey with you, guess what? You can come back and meet them in the same place. Mm-hmm. They're not going anywhere. But not everybody wants to see someone who was in the same place with them succeed. And you have to be prepared for that, unless you want to be around people who are consistently jealous of you. So that's what I mean by cocoon. Literally, just like how a silkworm would protect itself with the cocoon before it becomes a butterfly, that's what you're doing.
Absolutely. I love it.
Metamorphosis of yourself. And you can't, a silkworm is not in the same cocoon with another silkworm, so you need to do it yourself. And It's not easy, but you can, I think everybody can do that. It's just a situation of being more self-confident in what your goal is, and the fact that you really, really want to change your life. If you're intentional about it, because a lot of people complain every day, and I'm like, okay, but what are you doing about it? Mm-hmm. And my hope is that by the time I'm done with this journey, I have a playbook that people can use
Mhm.
to start, to realize that starting is not about the dollar amount. It's really about yourself and understanding that what opportunities to say no to, what opportunities to say yes to, how to ensure that you're building assets, all these little things that amount to this journey. It's very important that you start the right way with the right mindset. And that's why going into the cocoon phase really, really helps. It could mean, literally cutting off from people for like 6 months to a year, right? And doing this properly.
Yeah, I second that because every time I made transitions in life, it often made me want to go back and self-reflection and then two, see what I need to get there. And then like the first big transformation in my life from getting out of the hoods of DC where I grew up at and the mindset that everybody there lived in, which was part of my mindset at the time, is I moved to a whole different coast. I moved to the California, San Diego, where there's a whole different culture to be away from everybody, including my family, which allowed me to be in a different space, to get a new mindset, new perspective, and then grow. So every transformation phase has that. So now let's go into phase 2, educate and plan. What do people do in this phase, or what was something that you did in this phase that people can relate to?
So I went to sit down with people in the financial space. I had a mate who was in Forex and worked in finance for years, went to school together, in secondary school together. So we used to have constant conversation, right? And I could see there was somewhere he was leading me to, but I couldn't understand it. He wanted me to understand money. He wanted me to understand what it was like, how it moves, right? Then we got into conversation about Bitcoin, crypto. So I studied everything. Like anyone who knows me, if I'm interested in the topic, there's no book that I would not find under the sun, unless in a different language I can't understand, that I would not try to read or absorb. And that was what I did. So I went to educate myself, and it was very important that I made a plan. So I went to see a CPA and a financial advisor. I love the meeting I had with the financial advisor, and I looked for a financial advisor that, number one, had the same culture as I did, because you can't go to someone that does not understand how you grew up, does not understand how the kind of life you want to live, and they won't get it. They won't get why, a typical Nigerian spends maybe 100,000 to 200,000 on a wedding. They won't get it. They won't know how we want to travel and business class, first class, everywhere we go. The way we are now. They won't get like, oh, I want to stay in the best hotel. They won't understand that.
I need to enjoy myself, or
Thank you.
I don't work this hard not to enjoy. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself.
And that was the thing. And I experienced that already with my mother. And I'm telling you, man, like sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, just suffering. Why? I should have just stayed next to my mother, and not left. But I'm glad I went out to see the limitations of what I knew. When Africans say, are you, when somebody's exposed, you need to expose yourself to good and bad experiences, because it just forms who you are in a way that takes you out of the norm. And I'm very grateful to the kind of parents I have. They had this mindset of how they will raise us. And, people will probably look at all of us and think, oh, late bloomers. But no, because some people would have a perfect life until they get to their 40s or 50s, and then they have a midlife crisis, and then it all goes to hell. And I have had my midlife crisis early. Now it's smooth sailing, from this moment on. I'm not going to wake up in my 60s and buy a sports car that look ridiculous in or something like that, and it was like, even here, sometimes I look at people like the way life is here, and it's like the richest people are the oldest people here. I'm like, you already have health issues, physical limitations. And then you are now like, that's when you feel you're going to have time and money to do all the crazy things you want to do. That's why they end up doing golf or, laid back kind of stuff. No, I want to jump out of a plane. I want to go on a hot air balloon. Those crazy stuff that you still have the heart to do, not when you got BP issues, so it was like the kind of life I wanted. I literally laid down for the financial advisor I spoke to. He said, okay, this is what you got to do. I needed the numbers. So that was very important. That's what the plan is. The plan is know your number. And I needed to know my number so I could work towards it. I'm a goal orientated. I might be disorganized in some ways, but if I have a goal, anything that's going to get me there is what I'll do. And I will not do anything that will distract me or get me off track. So it's a situation where I had to create a plan and put it in place. What I'm going to do in year one, which was done already. Year two, what was the key? And the key actual book I read was Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Right.
When I saw that asset and liabilities table, I'm like, oh my goodness, so simple, right? And I love tables, I love numbers, I love metrics. So I mean, I just literally put my life there. Man, everything in my life was liabilities. Okay, this is not going to work. I need to build my asset column, right? And where I was at, I had to give myself a timeline. In 5 years' time, I'm going to do this. And, because it was like some things I could do in 2 years, something I could do in 3, some things I could only do in 5, but I had to build it. And the funny thing, I didn't realize what assets I was going to have over the next 4 years.
Uh-huh.
I didn't realize my book that I had written was an asset.
Uh-huh.
I didn't realize I could activate myself. I am an asset. I realized at that point, I am an asset, and then, oh my goodness, for 1 hour of me is worth this. You see, that's what people need to understand about 9 to 5. Which 9 to 5 is going to pay you, unless you're a doctor or one of them, Lord, going to pay you $500 an hour or $1,000 an hour.
Well, I mean, there are some doctors that get paid that much, but
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Unless you're a doctor or something,
right.
An attorney, So it's like not everybody has the capacity to become an attorney or to become a doctor. For goodness sake, they spend like half of their life studying. So it's just a situation where you have to realize that who am I? Okay, let me give you the basic thing. If I was in construction, right?
Uh-huh.
People think that like for me. Like, all right, where I grew up in Nigeria, like, unless you're the architect or the civil engineer on board, they don't see anybody else on the stage there. But I respect people in construction. They're the ones building the place I'm going to live. Then, but in Europe, in England, it was different. Those guys are like the richest guys. Those people in the trades, man, they're no joke. They're usually the ones that have multiple homes, either in England or in some holiday spot like in Spain. I mean, they live a really good lifestyle. So it was there I learned that it's perception and how your society or the culture you're in treats you. But here, when I got here, I learned that, people in construction as like, this the way someone I knew in construction described himself, scum of the earth. I'm like, come on, man, that's not true. You guys are doing something I cannot do. I can't work all day in a freaking construction site. I could hurt myself. And it was funny because even that person had accepted what society thought of him. And I looked at him, I said, when I look at you, do you know what I see? Someone that can build me my dream home. Mm-hmm. What I see is a skill set I don't have. What I see is the fact that for 1 hour, what you do, I can't do it, which means it's worth a lot of money to you. I mean, I had to help that person change how they thought of themselves to the point that they eventually believed in themselves to even go and fight for more money in their company. Yeah. And that's the thing. You see, that's where you have to guard your mind. Your mind is everything. Like how your mind is, your state of mind needs to be guarded. And you can only, what you feed your mind, what you tell yourself is what you are. So I had to change all of that. I had to feed myself the good stuff. I had to be around people who then, you know what? It was funny. I made a decision that I had to start speaking to millionaires. That's what I'm saying, that the universe will send you what you need when you're ready. Yes, an email drops into my mailbox from a lady from a PR company feeding me millionaires that wanted to get interviewed on my podcast. Mm-hmm. Brother, can you believe that? Literally the moment I made a decision that I need to start talking to millionaires, I was racking my brain for like a week. Okay, how am I going to do this? These are people who have like serious, like guard, barriers to talking to them. And I'm to ask for money. I'm here to ask, okay, how did you do it? How? Because that's the thing. Whenever anybody meets someone that's successful, what they're trying to figure out is how did this person get here? Mm-hmm. And my goodness, I got the best people to interview because they had some story. I mean, one was arrested 18 times. Was it 17 times before he turned 18? I can't remember. The numbers flipped or something. And he was actually the wealthiest out of everybody I interviewed. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, if he did it, and his history, this is someone that literally had, the typical like childhood that involved drugs and all that kind of stuff that you're like, what? And he is now a millionaire. And I looked at my own past and I'm like, come on, Sola, man, you can do better. Mm-hmm. And if I have accepted people who didn't know my value and gave me discounts or paid me, that was my fault. I let that happen. And I had to take that and own that right there and say, okay, I'm not going to let it happen again. I'm not going to give away my IP anymore. Mm-hmm. You can't borrow my brain. No, you have to pay for it because it's taking me this long to do what I do in 30 minutes to an hour in one day that someone can't even do in a year.
Mm-hmm.
That is my investment in myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I needed to realize, and the plan is to make a plan to ensure I hit that target, to ensure I build my asset column, to ensure that I realize that as an asset, how do I milk myself for it to generate cash?
Yeah.
And that changed my whole world and perception of things. Like I'm very grateful for everyone that has like been there, especially, I supported my mom that reminded me that I have just watched you, and I've always prayed that you meet the right people that will really see you for who you are and help you activate yourself. I mean, what other better prayer can you get? For you know the way Africans pray for their children, man.
Yeah,
It's like
I have to say thank you, mommy, for praying for Sola, because now we are together and we are going to make this happen. We will.
Yes.
We are going to retire you all.
yes. And another thing is confidence. That educate was, and that cocoon phase is to build confidence in yourself. No one can give that to you. If you're expecting to be validated by anybody, you're giving someone too much power. That's your power you're giving away. And I had to realize that when it comes to me being an asset, I have to create a beautiful garden in my subconscious for myself. Instead of stepping out of my garden and leaving it to grow weeds and be unattended and not fruit anything and go and help someone in their own garden, what I do now is, if you want something, guess what? I got lemon trees, apple trees, apricots, all that kind of stuff. Tell me what you want and I'll give you a bushel. And then you go plant the seeds in your own garden. That's what I do in my own safe space. That's not easy. Mentally, you have to do that. And that's important in the first two stages.
Yeah, I love that. I remember this. That reminds me of one of the conversations we had when we were looking at partnering up to build out RISEpreneurs. And I remember you asked me what my number was, and in my mindset, I was thinking, well, what's your number? Because my number is dependent upon your number because we're partners here.
Yeah, that was really good. I've never been in a space where. It's ever since I've been to be in a space where someone is considering you the way you're considering them. That is a blessing. That is a blessing. Knowing that you can sleep at night because someone has got your back. I used to seek that in a relationship, like a boyfriend, girlfriend, or hubby, wife relationship. I thought that's where you would get that. I didn't realize that you can get that from friends. You can get that from family members. I didn't realize that, see, that's the thing, your mindset. I had locked myself in a prison, self-inflicted prison, that was the only way I could achieve something, which also limited myself into thinking I was only 50%. But now I'm like, man, I'm like 500%, man, or 1,000%. If you want to be by my side, you got to make sure that you're at least on that level, or else, man, that's why relationships never worked out for me, because I was just operating on a higher, like on a massive pace. Like my ambition had to be matched. And that was something that I realized that, I might not get it in this space. I need to try and see if I can get it in friendships, in this, in that. And honestly, the people around me right now that we sit down and talk about these things, we talk about Forex, we talk about Bitcoin, we talk about blockchain, man, come on. Like I'm in such good space to ensure that my financial freedom will be achieved.
Yeah. And what I'll say is, for me, once I got out this into a new space and I gathered new friends, and some of the friends that I gathered became family, and now you're a part of my family as well. We have a certain mindset in a relationship that's all about togethering and staying on a journey together and growing together. And those are the people that became my new family members. Sometimes family is not just about blood. There's some people that are blood in your family that you don't subscribe to the same mindset and way of thinking.
No, definitely.
And you can't stay there with them, because then you'll become what they've become. And so you have to remove yourself. You still have love for them, but in order to achieve the level that you need to achieve, that you can't let them be the foundation in your mindset and thinking and everyday habits. And so you have to leave them where they are, and there's no disrespect to them. So with I guess that's a perfect segue to phase 3, keep it in the family. Tell me about phase 3, keep it in the family. What does that mean?
So if your culture is the kind where you're very family intrinsic, and I have to say it, if your culture is, because we know there are cultures on this planet that, some people let their parents go and live somewhere else, in their old age. So for people like us, where you are either the person in the family they call first when there's a problem, or if somebody is building a house somewhere, everybody has to contribute. If you know somebody is getting married or has died, I mean, literally, we've had that happen 6 times this year. Obviously, sadly because of COVID, where we all have to contribute towards a burial or something happening, or a wedding. It was actually a wedding this year. We have to contribute to. That's how it is for Africans. Let
me say so that's why, going back to your statement before, having the right financial advisor that knows you and your culture, so they won't understand. Why you have to pull out $1,000. Everybody has to pull out $1,000 in once to go spray at the wedding.
It's more like $200 that they'll change to $1 notes. But I like that you get that. Oh, that's so funny. But seriously, and that's actually an issue I had, because especially with interracial relationships, where people don't get why you have to take out a chunk of money and give it to your family. And it's happened in our family. Some of our family members who've married outside our race have had that. So outside our culture have had that problem. For the other one understanding that that's my money. Why are you sending? And I'm like, I said, well, I always blame the person that's from our side. You did not educate the person before you started. So if you had, they would understand that this is necessary. But the thing is, going back to what I was saying was that if you want to grow, you can't grow alone. And that's what makes this journey so sweet, that I'm not alone on it. Because one thing I realized was that if I become the wealthiest person in my family, guess what? I will soon become the poorest, because everybody will be coming to you for money first. And I've seen it firsthand literally happen in my own primary unit. And it's something that used to make me really angry, and I used to say, man, and I didn't want, and see, this is another thing that added to my fear of being successful. I didn't want to become one of those rich people that became, like stingy. And, in my language, we say laun. And it's like, you're very tight with money, that kind of thing. I wanted to have the opportunity to be generous because I knew I could be. I wanted to fill my cup so that the overflow is what I gave, right? And I said, you know what? I'm going to give my family a chance to jump on this journey with me before I hit hyperdrive. And I did. So it was Christmas, you always meet up with your family. Everyone jumps on a call, or multiple people. We speak to everybody at that time of year. And that's what I did. I let everyone know that this is what I'm doing. For the next 5 to 6 years, you can't ask me for 1 penny. You can't ask and I will not give. And some thought I was joking. Some were like, they know me, so they know that they better listen to what I'm saying. And they agreed. The ones that agreed, and I can tell you that out of the ones that agreed, were that maybe 60% are still on the journey. The ones that thought it was a joke, they had the last, I had the last laugh, because literally the next month, they're calling up asking to help out with this, help out with that. I said, I don't have jack. I literally told you a couple of months ago that you can't ask me for anything for the next 6 years, because I have to get myself together. The way we have to look at it is that we can't keep doing this barrel of crab thing, right? And we have to be like, the only way you can't push somebody up. If you push someone up, where are you? You're at the bottom. Meanwhile, the person has gone up and is flying and enjoying, and you are still at the bottom. You can only help someone up when you are on top and pulling people up. And in order to pull, the person has to stretch, right? And put some effort into it. And that's the best way for me to describe keep it in the family. So it was a situation where if you know the same tools I'm using and you have the same knowledge I have, and I'm willing to share it for free, you can jump on this journey too and do what's best for you. You might not be trying to hit 1 million, but at least you will hit something substantial to help and support yourself. And I can tell you that was this is the hardest phase of the journey, because not everybody's going to want to do that. They are happy and comfortable with you giving them stuff to survive all the time. And that was when I knew that I had to become a different kind of African, because for myself, for my daughter, for my immediate family, we had to change our level of generosity, or else we would never have what we wanted. So that was not easy. It was something that I said I was going to do an episode to express and share that. But it was such a traumatic part of the journey that I've not even gotten the strength to even say, okay, and it's happened to some of my team members as well that I've worked with in other companies who have the same culture. And it's like, you have to ask yourself that, is it fair that eventually by the time you're old and everything, your kids might not have because you were supporting several other people? We have to ask ourselves in our culture sometimes, like, what can we do to help each other? we have a good system when it comes to the regulated way of raising money for each other, for a wedding, for a burial, for different things. But what about raising, and then we also do it for education too, but what about after that? One thing about our weddings that used to bug me was like, we spend the money for a deposit for a house on a party where most of the people there you don't even know.
to impress people that you don't even know, don't even like, with things that you don't really have.
Exactly. I mean, I used to make a joke that, Mom, if I'm ever going to have a big wedding, make sure that I'm either inebriated and I'm not wearing my glasses so I can't see what's going on.
What?
I mean, why do I want to make like the supposed best day of my life completely unconscious? Bro, you've been to a Nigerian wedding now. There's a that the bride does not even want to see. So, it's like, in my mind, I'm thinking, no, I love my culture, but you need to get to a point of place of maturity where you have to say, okay, is this good for me? Mm-hmm. Is this good for my family? And you need to be firm. Like, I became the matriarch at that point because I had to make certain decisions and employ everyone to make certain decisions just for a few years. And I said, it's going to be hard, but we need to make a plan. And I needed to accept that some people that I really care deeply about were not going to go on this journey as well. And I needed to let them know that there are consequences for making the decision. Mm-hmm. So one thing I decided that we're going to do for Keep It in Family was ensure we created a fund. That fund, everyone needs to put money into it, right? So if there's a wedding, the money will come out of that fund. If there's a burial, it has to come out of that fund so that you're not pulling money unexpectedly out of your own, your own stash. And that that, okay, whatever the fund covers is how far the family will go. And that was something that, making that suggestion was the best. The goal was to launch it after my 5th year. So once I finished the journey, was to launch it in year 6, basically, if we're looking at it based on timeline for the family, and get everyone ready. So and I said, even if it's $1 you can put something in, but just remember, it's just like karma, what you put in and what you're going to get back. I'm not... don't expect that you put $1 and you're going to ask for like 100,000. That's not going to happen.
Right. So this phase kind of reminds me of, it's something that I often say to sometimes my family members, like airline safety procedures. When they say in an unlikely event of an emergency, the flight attendant tells you to at the start of every flight, oxygen mask will appear in front of you, place them firmly over your nose and mouth, and breathe normally. If you're traveling with a child or someone who requires assistance, secure your mask first and then assist the other person. And at first blush, saving yourself might seem like an act of selfishness, but the truth is that if we pass out from lack of oxygen, we're unable to help those around us. And this principle applies to life in general. Remember, self-care is not a matter of selfishness or ego. Taking care of your own needs on a consistent basis leads to better mental health, greater productivity, richer relationships with family, friends, professional colleagues, and building wealth. So you have to take care of you first to build wealth. So I love that you mentioned this. Now let's go to step 4, what seems like it's your current phase, assets and equity. Tell me about this phase.
This actually is a quick change. So I want to quickly mention something in step 3 just to wind it up quickly. Okay. So one of the fastest way I thought about supporting the family and ensuring that they understood this goal and see how hard it was working was create a family business, chocolate and cinnamon. Okay. So that was a retire, like a please try and retire gifts to my mother. On her 60th birthday, that didn't go down so well. She's going to retire, but we launched that business, which became a for-profit brand. So I know we're going to go over the 7 sources of income in a bit, but the for-profit brand is that is an asset for myself, my family, is chocolate and cinnamon. That's what it's supposed to do. Yeah. Our goal is to hit 1 million sales. Initially, it was to hit 1 million sales in 2 years, but of course, Rona came in, like literally just wiped our sales channels out. So we're working on other things to make sure that we actually hit that target in year 5 of this journey. So I'm in phase 4. And assets and equity, this is actually different from what this was supposed to be. This was supposed to be like a reflection year of how I've done and a look at the streams of income I had gone into. But because of Corona, right? And also things like George Floyd that happened to really show me and bring it to my attention more than like really forward attention as a Black person, what it was like for us around the world. Me as a person that I've literally navigated my life in a way because of the opportunities and the privilege that I have in terms of the lifestyle that my mother was able to afford us. I didn't feel certain pains that people who look like me do. So it coming to my attention, I realized that, but hang on, my grandfather, yes, was a diplomat, but he didn't start there. He was like, he made a decision to become something. This man had like multiple degrees, accountancy, law. I can't remember the other one that he had. He became a diplomat. He was stationed in different places. But when I hear where he started from, my goodness, poverty in the first world is nothing compared to where he started from. He was, he was also a teacher, teaching degree, he had a teaching degree. And it made me think a lot about what some people have sacrificed to ensure we have certain freedoms today, and I realized that as a group, as a whole, and that even comes from our point of origin, we're not wealthy, and wealthy is not just about money. It's about health. It's about your social life. It's about your spiritual state and mental state of mind. And these things need to be addressed. So I felt that, okay, the best way for me to assist in this area is to think about building equity, showing people how to do that. As an economist, I can do that on a macro level. I can also do it on a micro level, right? Working with people like financial advisors and things like that, that how can we collectively as a group realize that, look, we got to own something. For instance, hundreds of years ago, we lost equity in Africa, labor. We lost people, and they became assets in another part of the world. Assets that they didn't even realize they were assets. They didn't realize what they were building. They became the reason why the first countries in the world are the richest countries in the world. And one of the reasons I actually studied economics was to understand, why is Nigeria poor? Why do we have poverty? Or why are we not at a certain level? I couldn't understand it there because in the books, history does not dictate the financial implications of colonialism, slavery, and all these things. And that's the number that was missing in all the economic equations and statistics that I did. And history is always rewritten by the victor. So when we become victors, and I don't mean victory does not have to involve a war. It involves, when are we going to self-analyze as a group of people and realize that even our origin has problems? So, it was very important that the next step I made had something in fixing, not everything, but something, but doing something, which explains the company that I'm the CEO of now, High Gear. We're a hygiene tech company. Africa has a hygiene gap that is just ridiculous. Only 30% of sub-Saharan Africa have access to clean water or sanitation systems, 30%. And me, that came from there, as wealthy as we were back home, well, I know what we had to do to have clean water or bathe with water. I know the things we had to be. We're literally creating our own energy, being self-sustaining. All this one where the first one is thinking about, live sustainably, see if you can live off grid. We're literally doing that ourselves back home, every single household. But now real estate is changing where they're now building estates that actually do that for the whole community. But, it's taking this long, and it's usually because someone who has lived abroad has come back home to make those changes. And that's why I'm really enamored by what Ghana has done with this year of return. You're coming, see, this is the thing. You that have, your ancestors have gone through hell here. You're an asset. It might not be an asset here. You're an asset somewhere else. Everyone there looks like you. Everyone there that's probably driving a high-end car, house. And we're not a credit-based society. So everything you're literally seeing is cash. The house, the car, the phones, the traveling and everything. That's our society. I mean, people carry cash around in bags. So that means when you look at it in terms of wealth, we actually have the upper hand. But because of how the world has been taught about who we are, we allowed we're at a point where we don't need to allow that anymore. The world has changed. The social media, internet, we can, we don't even need to rewrite anything. We can tell the truth. We can change the narrative and tell the truth. That is it. Tell the truth. When you tell the truth, it will melt away all these social problems that have been created by somebody else, that have controlled how you live your life or have lived. We need our own systems because we're not the same. The way we think, the way we operate, the way we live, and we will never be the same. You can't force someone else to adopt a certain level of civilization. Because there was an article I'm still writing, it's taking me a while, but it's like, is civilization civil?
That's
And
deep.
you have, yes, because when I look at money, some of the systems we in Africa had is better than the systems here. I don't believe in credit. In terms of, when I say credit, I don't mean like your credit score. I don't think credit is really a safe thing. Yes, it's good. It extends your wealth, but it's a fake extension. As economists, it's something that to me is why we have to have a multiplier effect when it comes to when you make changes to fiscal changes or monetary changes in an economy, that it takes like 3 or 4 times or certain amounts of rounds for it to turn in the economy before it actually makes a difference. Which is why I tell people that when someone makes any kind of policy now, don't look at it what it does now. Check it in five years. So like a vaccine, check to see what the effect would be in 5 years' time. You know, and it's like seeing the world in a different way with all the things that have happened in coronavirus, seeing that we in Africa are probably going to get that vaccine for a while. We're going to be, because even the first world is battling with their supply. You have to ask yourself that we have contributed so much to this world, but are not in the books. There's no record. So how do you expect everybody that's coming, the next generation, to be inspired to do more? But that's changing. And I feel like, a movie really pushed on what I could do, which was Black Panther. And I always tell people that everyone that watched that movie got something different. But what I got as an African, was the message that was said at the end of that movie. And it's stood with me. It's made me think, how can I help? I have to figure out how I can help. And that's why assets and equity, because if I can do asset and equity for myself, equity, and before it was assets, I'm adding equity now, right? It means that everybody else behind me, beside me, who reads my story can do the same thing too. So that's why phase 4 is so important. In fact, I've said to myself that if I have to make this phase longer than a year, because I was able to shave 6 months off one of my other phases, I'm adding that to this phase to ensure I do it the right way, to ensure I lead the right way. What I'm doing right now, which is superiorly intentional, for this journey.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Now, in this journey, and we forgot to talk about your 7 streams of income list, explain a little bit more of how the 7 streams of income, that worksheet, and how you kind of use it to build into the assets and equity and what that does. Because I know it's linked on the worksheet is linked on the HTMAM Journey website, but talk a little bit more about that 7 streams of income list and worksheet.
So what you hear all the time is that millionaires always have multiple streams of income, right?
Yeah.
So I heard that and I heard that. In fact, one of the millionaires actually counted that, no, you just have to be focused on something. But I think it's based on making your money work for you, right? That's the mentality behind it, right? So there are 7 streams of income. From my research, I said, okay, there are different people saying there are 3, 5, but 7 is the magic number, right? And the first one is not one that someone like me expected.
Yeah, wait. Real quick, how did you get to the magic number 7?
It was from lots of reading, research, looking at different, I read, I think I probably read, maybe if I say hours in total, maybe about 100 hours of reading, specifically on this topic. What are the streams of income? So every article I could find, I'm like, okay, when I saw something that was repetitive, I made a note of it, right? And then I looked at what I had to do. So the standard streams of income are what I've put on that sheet. What's available there. So I now decided I was going to explain it so people will understand it. And I had to do it from my own side, because if I did it I'm not a 9-to-5 person. I never was, right? So I could never explain it in that way. I had to come at it as an entrepreneur, which I feel entrepreneurship is the gateway to financial freedom for many minority communities. When you come to a new place and you're seeing that you're struggling to get a job, start a business, right? Fulfill a need. So that, they don't care about what you look like. They don't care about the fact that you've done the job, right? So that's something that's imbibed in me. And I cannot say it's because, I was an immigrant or anything, because that wasn't really the case. But what I've seen with the kind of injustice and abuses of human rights that we're seeing to people like us around the world, that is literally the best way to do it. There are things that we're really good at. And, we should just kind of like stick to that, right?
Yeah.
So with the HTMAM streams of income, I wanted it to be a tool for everyone who got a hold of it. That is your guide. So before you see and get my playbook, use this, right? And I made sure that I actually did an episode on this specifically, because some people, when they read something, is not the same, but when they hear you speak and see how you are relating it to your own situation, they can find a way to do that for theirs. And on the sheet, I literally say anything worth doing is worth doing well. And the same goes for educating yourself on the 7 sources of income most millionaires gain or utilize to stay millionaires. So you can be a millionaire today and broke tomorrow. But if you want to stay a millionaire, your money needs to keep on working, right? And that's what the things of income is about. So do you want me to share the 7, them just like now with everyone?
Yeah. Go ahead. Say the 7.
So number 1 is get comfortable, right? Uh-huh. Now, get comfortable is like you. You need a job. You need a job, right? Now, remember, guys, I'm an entrepreneur. So I'm literally doing all of this based on the income I make here and there and then plugging it in. But it would be so much easier if I had a 9 to 5. So I had to create my own 9 to 5, right? And fortunately, thank goodness, I was able to do that in more media tech. And I'm now doing it again in high gear, right? So you have to have a job that literally covers the bill so you're not thinking. Now, the way I see it, if you're not the kind of person that's looking to build a career or anything, just look for a brainless job, because what you're about to build is going to take up a lot of space and you need time, right? To study, to do things. Like Terrell, right now, you really don't have time. I'm like, I think you're like some magic, some magician. I don't see how you create time for all these things, but you do, because you know what you want and you know the limitations of what a job would do. So this source of income, is special. We all have a special relationship with, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a job. Exchanging time and skills for money. But again, remember, time is limited. You only have 24 hours in a day, right? Mm-hmm. And you're exchanging that for money. So unless you can find a way of magically making yourself work for the whole 24 hours, which some people do. Doctors do that. Maybe that explains why they're so rich. Right. 48-hour shifts. I mean, that's insane. And nurses. Or you increase how much you get paid for that time. Now, in a 9 to 5 world, as I said, how many people get paid $500 an hour? Not many. So you have to find a way to say, okay, how am I going to get myself to the point where I'm going to get paid that? Terrell, as a speaker, you can create the income you want to get paid for that time you spend talking. So, that's literally the thing. But you need something that's covering the baseline of your life, your bills, right? And that's what the get comfy is. Now, every source of income feeds the other. That's something to know about this sheet. That's very important. So having a job and being intentional that, okay, this is the thing. A lot of people just think about a job. They don't think about the cash. And then they end up having multiple jobs. So no, if I say that, the house I want to live in is going to cost $2,000, that means I need to find a job that's going to pay me at least $3,500 a month. That's the way I think, right? I don't think about, let me just get a job and start there. No, I don't know, because I can get stuck and then I will never achieve what I'm trying to achieve. So, how you strategize is so important. So make sure that you have a job that covers at least not the lifestyle you're trying to have, but the basis of it. So you can build from there. Now, with your job right now, you have things you've plugged into that you now have assets, financial assets. And that's important. So we need to be very, realize that. And then the last question I ask on my sheet is, how comfortable are you? So with the job you have now, are you actually comfortable? That's a very hard question to answer for most people. Mm-hmm. If you're not comfortable, then what are you going to do about it? So the next stream of income is a solution. Entrepreneurship is hard at first. So for profit, that's the next stream of income, for profit income, which for me is chocolate and cinnamon, something that's on auto run that literally people order and things get delivered to them, right? So once you get a hang of it, handle your supply, manage your finances, get a mentor. If you don't understand entrepreneurship, please get a mentor so that they can guide you on things you need to do. The simplest way of doing this is having an online e-commerce store of some kind. So for us in RISEpreneurs, is our merchandise store, right? And we have some products coming out pretty soon this year that we'll tell you about in a different time. So for profit income is important. And if you realize with RISEpreneurs, brother, that was something that was important to me for us to build in our brand, that, hey, we need to have a residual income, right? And that is what for profit. So building a business that you don't need to be there, right? You don't become an employer in your business. It's something that is on auto run. Unfortunately, in the stage we're in, you can even sell worksheets. If you're a teacher, sell a curriculum, right? There's so many. If you're in construction, create a course on, things to be mindful of on the construction site. Something is something you can do. If you're in farming, create a course. I mean, there's a young lady who has a course on farming in Africa. Man, I'm like, damn, she's making money from this thing. So that's also about you being an asset as well. Some people only make money from digital downloads. You will be surprised what you can come up with that will do that. And then drop shipping, there's so many options now. And if you can do that and generate a healthy profit, and you have to be not greedy when you're doing all these things. Healthy profit might not be like $10,000 a month. Some people make that, but that's a lot of work. But again, you have to ask yourself, you already have a job and you have a for-profit income based on what you're selling. So for us, we make sure that every sale that we generate on chocolate and cinnamon is $200. Why is that? I had a formula. So this is the formula, bro. I thought 1 million. For me to hit 1 million, I need to sell how many units to get to 1 million at 200? 50,000 units, yeah? So I was like, okay, my goal is to sell 50,000 units. Instead of worrying about my goal is 1 million, my goal is to sell 50,000 units of product, right? Or have 50,000 sales. That is an easier thing to chew than thinking of how you're going to make 1 million with products that literally are high luxury skincare. So, that's the way to look at it. So for profit is very important, and just make sure you have a plan and someone that can help you guide you through the entrepreneurship model. So number 3 is royalty. Monsieur Larry will be very, very excited when he hears that every time on Shark Tank. But yeah, it's true though. But it's intellectual property. For instance, my book, I didn't realize until when I was looking at it that I could license the content to schools, license it to universities to use in their entrepreneurship program or accelerator or incubator or stuff like that. I'm not a great salesperson, in essence, like sales is something that tortures me, but I realized I've had to become one in this latest company because of how important the company's vision and mission is. So royalty is really key. You have to figure out, what do I have that I can literally make money off? So if you're someone that's a graphic designer, instead of just making money based on each job, start designing things that are your concept and put it on one of these stock websites and then start getting money for people who use it. That's royalty right there, right? It's your intellectual property. A patent or copyright can be a great source of passive income. Right now, as I'm sitting down, I have 2 patents pending, right? That I can license if somebody wants to use the technology or use it to add to their own technology, right? So I'm in a good spot. Copyright my book. Then I've got my own intellectual property, right? So these are things that people can license, my curriculum. There's so many things that I've got now that are assets. See, that thing, you need to really look through your life and say, what do I have as an asset? Do I have a book in me? Can I write a help guide of some kind? Is there something that I know for sure deep that I can definitely talk about without blinking? If you're not a writer, create a podcast and license the content for people to use in classrooms. Record videos on YouTube and create a short course or something. How to bake something or something like that. There's so many things that people are so hungry for content nowadays that there are people who, the kind of websites they've built or business they built, they need to buy content off people for them to sustain themselves. Figure out where you fit in and plug in, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. So that's what royalty is about. And I believe that everybody can find some kind of royalty that they can earn, right? So now, if you've noticed, number 2 and 3 are things you need to set up and more or less manage with, like, not micromanage, but lightly, right? That's passive income right there, right? Yeah. So for profit income, yes, you might have to do some marketing and everything to drive sales, but the royalty one is literally making sure that you are in the right space that people know that, oh, this is for sale. So like for us, like with our patents, we have to make sure we're in the space where we're like, hey, we are not really, we're not engineers, or our product is not ready to be in production yet, but we're happy to license the technology for you to make something that's closer to this level and then pay us. Yeah. So you have to be very open. You can't be greedy. See, the key thing is don't be greedy, because if you're greedy, you're also harming yourself. Yeah. So now the next one, which everybody knows, is interest. So people who are big on savings right now might not be the best time, but if you got savings, certificates of deposit, or into compound interest, which I think is the best thing when you think about saving, or other investments, these are things to think about. Check it. Like, whenever you get that letter from your bank saying you've earned this much interest, which might just be peanuts, it's still something. Yeah. But it's still interest.
But we all know compound interest is the best.
Yes, compound interest is the best. I don't have time to explain what that is right now, but the person that goes on compound interest that says it all the time is the billionaire on Shark Tank. What's his name? Mark Cuban.
Yeah.
And the other one as well, Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
So these are people who have used and again, this is about listening and reading like so many articles. What are the key terms they keep saying all the time? Go and figure out what it is and apply it to your life.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the number 5 is pass me dividends.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where investing, becoming an angel investor is big. And I feel like the more of us that become, people who invest in startups, I remember this is at your own risk because it's quite risky, the better our community will be, because then we don't have to step outside to try and look for finance or capital to do anything. So if you're in a position where even if it's like $5,000, you can wrap up $1,000 and can create a syndicate to invest in a startup that would be successful, do it. There are 2 startups that I could have had an opportunity to invest in before they now got to a point where they're now at $1 billion valuation, and I didn't. But it was because I didn't have the liquid to do that. And I said I would never be in that position again. So I have it in me where I have a particular pot that's specifically only to invest in startups. And I knew that if I created a syndicate, that it would be easier to do that. And that's what happened with Sheba. That's how we created Sheba Venture Partners. The 3 of us came together and said, okay, this is what we want to do. Let's try the VC route. That didn't work out for us, but we realized it was because the companies wanted to fund. They didn't need that kind of financial aggro at that point of their business. They needed support. They needed someone there to bounce, mentors. They needed guidance of a certain kind to get to a particular leverageable point in their company that it was valued at a certain point before they could attract VC funding, right? Where you're not even the one knocking on VC doors, they're the ones coming to solicit from you. And that was important to us. So what we did was we took out, over a 5-year period, when we started in the year period, invested in 10 companies, a certain amount of services and equity. And when equity is not just cash, equity is also sweat equity. A lot of people need to really, and for us, especially in our community, brother, Black and African, we have a lot of skills. So the best thing to do is like say, hey, you know what? I am willing to give you 10 hours of, let's say you're in tech, of CTO skills, or if you're in finance, of CFO skills. But I want equity in your company.
Yeah.
Now, that would eventually pay you dividends, right? So when that company hits and then it starts making a profit, you will start earning money. And that's what dividends is about. So I don't want you to look at dividends as in going to the stock market and investing in companies that exist. What about the new ones? What about the ones that need a chance? Take a massive chance. And then it's like, you also have to grow your risk appetite. I have a high risk appetite. So I don't advise anyone on to invest the way I do, but I believe in investing in startups, in Black-owned startups and African-owned startups is key to like moving us forward and closing a gap.
Okay. So
if that's something that you can do, seriously consider it. I mean, bro, there are lots of times I come to you with opportunities, isn't there? I know I came up with one yesterday and like, hey, this is an opportunity. Are you interested? You need to build a syndicate to invest in it. And those are kind of conversations I think we need to be having with ourselves, with our friends, not just about hanging out, drinking beer, watching sports. Mm-hmm. It's about how can we stop this situation happening and show our value, but within our space. Mm-hmm. So the next one is rental income. As you know, real estate, baby.
Show me the real estate.
Yes. As an economist, I always believe in brick and mortar and land. So for me, I think that's like the safest investment you can literally make.
There. And it's so safe because there's not any more of it going to be made. So you're literally, once you get a piece of that pie and lock it down, with time, it becomes more valuable. It's just the way it is.
Agreed. So most millionaires have a stake in commercial or residential real estate. It is a long-term way to build wealth. You're playing the long game, right? I think if you're a good investor, you're one that is not that you're fast, ride fast, ride hard. No, you need to be in it for the long haul. Decide how you want to enter. Build and earn before taking the stream of income on. Self-education and a team of experienced professionals are key to building a successful portfolio. So if you're going to build a portfolio, like for me, this is my interest. I want to build my own home. I want to build homes and sell. I'm not a rental person. I just don't think I have the mental capacity to manage property or to think about, for instance, like when you think about COVID, anyone that was renting was really stressed out. because you had a situation where even if you had multiple properties around the world, they were not paying rent, right? So because they just couldn't, and you can't kick people out of their property, because even if you do, who's going to jump in and pay the rent? Everybody's stressed out financially during Corona. We're grateful that we all have work or jobs, that people like us that still do, but still, just imagine that you own multiple lots of properties and, you're in a situation where for a year they haven't paid the rent. If your financing company is not in a position or in a financial economic system where we have all these options of follow for your mortgage or rent, what was it called? What did they call it? Where they said that people couldn't be evicted, and where the government is also willing to support landlords as well. If you're not in that space, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me, I told you, I always think macro and, future and base. I look at present, future, past, everything to make a decision. So I said, okay, I want to be in the part of real estate that builds property and sells it off. So like a new development, that's me. That's kind of space I want to be in. So I know that in order for me to jump into that space, fortunately, they have a crowdfunding platform for things like that now. Mm-hmm. I need to have a certain amount of money. So my goal is to get my first set of income, 5 set of income, to get me to the point where I can invest in my first development. And doesn't have to be in a first world country, because it's very expensive. It's a high capital entry, right? So I can decide that, okay, a development that might be in Africa or somewhere I can invest in, right? And then the goal is for them to sell all the units. So I will get my money back plus a return. So that's where I sit in when it comes to real estate. I also believe in land, but for like agriculture. As you know, I have an interest in industrial hemp production. So that's like, when it comes to land, that's my own thought process. I want to invest in a space that involves having multiple farms owned by people like us that are not just cultivating, but also processing. The industrial hemp to the finished product that would then be used for in fashion, plastics, or whatever. I mean, industrial hemp can literally be converted into anything, the fiber that is, for plastic and I believe glass. No, sorry, except for glass and metal. I think that's the only thing that can be converted to, but it can be converted to plastic. It can be used to build houses, and it feeds back the soil, which is very important. So those are the kind of things I think about when it comes to real estate. Commercial real estate is something that I really like as well. But again, COVID has really shown me what could have happened to me if I owned a strip mall. Where businesses were closed and they couldn't pay rent. Again, if I think it's about making a good choice based on the locality of where you're at. For me, if I own a property that I had to rent out, I will be very happy and lucky if I was in California, because they had support for landlords and people who were renting as well. So anywhere else, I would be a bit jittery, because I don't know if they were going to understand, and then I would lose my property in a situation where I couldn't pay my mortgage anymore. So those are kind of things that you have to think about. So real estate is a viable option, but it takes a while to get there. So, some people do it by saying that, okay, the first house I buy, first apartment or something I buy, I'm going to keep it and rent it, then get my second home, or I'm going to live in it and then get it. But commercial loans are easier to get than, living a residential one. So when you look at it that way, I met millionaires who say that they rent, but they own property. And I'm like, at first, whenever you said, like, why would you do that? But now I get it. The returns, man, they are, and if you live in a property, think about it. If you lose your income, you have to move out. The bank does not have any money coming in. But if it's a commercial property, it means it will always be rented. So they will always get a return from that. So those are kind of things to think about when you're looking at real estate. So the final one, and this one is where you're like, uber rich, that kind of thing. Or when you're buying and selling property back and forth, or art and antiques and all them things, when you own a yacht or something like that and it's accrued, appreciated, or things like that. That's capital gains. If you're in real estate, you know what this is. But if you're not, this is literally the income you earn from the sale of investment or assets that have increased in value over time. So, property investors are aware of this. And as I said, as well as individuals whose property values have risen from whence they purchased them, such as art, antiques, vintage items and things like that. So as I said, I know that I'll be sipping tea and saying, hey, brother, that money that you just bought at that auction is increased in value. Let's sell it, and then, that kind of stuff. Or gold, a lot of people like, actually something that my mom told me years ago was that, and the reason why a lot of Africans acquire gold is because it's actually a savings. I didn't even know that. And she said, that it's for a rainy day. was funny because my mom, one of the times when I was in England, most Africans, your parents already bought you lots of gold. So my mom said it's for a rainy day now. So what did I do? When I had a rainy day, I went to go and sell my gold. She was so mad. She was mad. She's like, Shola, you're not supposed to say, but yes, what you told me. Say, yeah, but I didn't literally mean that you're going to go do it. But essentially, that's the same thing, right? So the gold you have accrues, it gets appreciates. And by the time you're ready to sell it, it's worth a lot of money. Yeah. I'm not going to say the same for silver or whatever, or, every other thing else. Maybe palladium and platinum actually are worth a lot, but still, that's the way it was, we think about it. In fact, what I always tell people that if you look at the reserves of a lot of countries, it's usually in gold. It's usually in all those kind of, antiquities, like, okay, it's gold, diamond, and all these things that they know always have or hold their value, right? Yeah. So those are the 7 sources of income. It's important that, you plan. Planning is very important. Work with a financial advisor, wealth manager to really, just like what you did, Terrell, that you discovered there's so many things you could do to help your financial future. Mm-hmm. And it's the same. Even when you have this sheet, take it with you when you're going, eventually when you pick it up from the website, take it with you when you're going to speak to your financial advisor next. Say, hey, how can I get to this stage where I'm having this multiple streams of income, mm-hmm. right? And, I think you will be on your way to becoming, a millionaire.
Yeah, I think so too. Now, the last of this journey is phase 5 reflection. I know we haven't gotten there yet, but when you look at phase 5 reflection, what do you think that will look like for you and what does that look like for anybody in this journey?
That should be when you hit the million.
Right.
That should be when you know that everything you've built over the last 5 years is worth that. Mm-hmm. So I have a number, and my goal is once you've hit a million, it should be relatively simple to go and hit the next million and the next because you've done it. The mm-hmm. hardest part is hitting the first one. Mm-hmm. And now it's more about maintenance and, growing your wealth. Yeah. I have a number that I'm going to stop at. Like, I'm not someone that it would be nice to be a billionaire, but I don't think it's something I need for the kind of lifestyle that I'm very nomadic, right? Yeah. So I'm not someone that needs to have possessions or things like that. I mean, anyone who's known me knows that I've moved a lot, and I'm the kind of person that if I'm moving to my next phase in life, I can sell everything and just go. And that's literally what I've done every time. And it means that possessions are not big for me. So I need to have some kind of asset that pays me the money no matter where I am in the world. Mm-hmm. And that's my lifestyle. That's what I want. I want to be able to say, okay, I'm going to live in Thailand for 6 months. Or I'm going to do this. I'm going to live here for 6 months. I'm going to travel here and spend like a year here doing business. That's what I want. And, I wasn't born into like a uber wealthy family that I can do that. Right. And my goal is to reflect on how I've been able to get to a certain point, how I did the one, and then how I'm going to do the next one, mm-hmm. and then how I'm going to teach what I've done. Because this building equity is about sharing this journey. For someone like me, that I have like an opportunist nature and I have a nomadic nature, to stick to something for this long and actually achieve it will mean a lot to me. The gratitude will be overflowing. I have a feeling like when I get there, I'll just be crying because I know what it meant for me to do and change my persona, change my mindset, make sure that I was around the right kind of people, let go of a lot of people that was hurtful, but I had to, made intentional decisions, all those things, a very massive reflection. In fact, I'm going to take a break for like a year mm-hmm. once this happened, because it's like, I want to make sure that the moves I make next mm-hmm. are impactful, not just for myself, but a massive group of people.
Yeah.
And that's what year 5 is about. So year 5 is hitting the money and literally saying, guys, I did it. I literally hit 1 million. I can't believe it. And then you obviously, like when you receive an Oscar, have an acceptance speech, thank everybody. And beyond that point, it's going to be teaching. It's going to be, my ultimate goal is to retire and teach in universities around the world. Nice. Be a guest lecturer. That's what I want to do.
I can see you doing it too.
Thank you. And my hope is that everything that I pull together from this journey, from High Gear, from More Media, from RISEpreneurs, will actually eventually lead to that.
I love it. I love it. And you've been a source of knowledge for our RISEpreneur community, for the hashtag HTMAM HTMAM Journey community, and we look forward to growing with you here at RISEpreneurs and helping everybody else grow and rise in their career and their personal journey in business. Sola, thank you so much for your wisdom and knowledge. And, you know, I have a dream of us, you know, celebrating the millionaire journey together. And I have a dream of us hitting it at the same time. So I'm putting that out there.
Manifestations. There you go. Oh, yeah. And you guys, let me leave it here, because if you want to know more about this journey and how, you know, the certain things that you need to do, we have this segment called Spill the Shy on RISEpreneurs. Yeah. So go check it out. Because the first Spill the Shy that I did, it was about money manifestations. You need to get into the habit of manifesting money. Even if you feel like, oh, this is stupid, just do it. Right. Because you're putting it out there in creation. It will come back. Right. And, you know, HTMAM is now part of RISEpreneurs. You know, we got acquired by RISEpreneurs, so we've merged. And literally, you can get it all, you know, together. We're going to start doing, like, you know, crossovers as they do in our series. And please look out for that. I'm really excited to share our journey with you and our RISEpreneurs family, because that's the goal. Right. You know, you rise, I rise, we rise together.
Yeah, I love it, love it. So, Sola, ladies and gentlemen, another great episode, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Rise Urban Nation.
Thank you for taking the journey.
Be sure to like, comment, and smash that subscribe button. And stay connected with Terrell on and off the show. Follow at Rise Urban Nation on all platforms.
Do what you love what you do. Don't chase the money. Let the money chase you.